Here in the United States, when we fought these battles with the Native Americans or we fought other battles, did we give land back? Oh, you know what? California, Mexico, you take it. New Mexico is back to old Mexico. And then the British. Oregon, no, we don't have Oregon, Washington. The entire damn Western United States was taken at the end of a gun. We aware of that here? I don't know. Seems awfully stupid. And Syria didn't always have those boundaries. Several thousand years ago, it was called Assyria. So Israel has launched these strikes and ground incursion. It's not a ground incursion like the media wants you to believe, like they're taking over Syrian territory. There's a buffer zone that was agreed to in 1974, after the war in 1973. And that buffer zone was honored by the Syrians and the Israelis. So the Israelis have moved into the buffer zone to buffer Israel from the enemy, to protect their people. Now, this is why I think Netanyahu agreed to a ceasefire with Hezbollah. I think they could see what was beginning to happen with the rise of the terrorists moving in towards Aleppo and then some of the other towns in Syria. And so I think this is why, because he needed to move, Netanyahu, troops, ground troops, tanks, now to the border with Syria. I think that's why he did what he did. But they're still pounding Lebanon when they find that Lebanon has missiles or they're shooting missiles and so forth. So far, fairly good. But Hezbollah can't help Assad. They used to be part of the military apparatus that they were using against the people who were revolting. Iran can't supply them with anything anymore. Iran can barely do anything on its own anymore. So look what Israel has done. October 7th happens. They say, you know what, that's enough of this stuff. Netanyahu does. If Netanyahu had listened to Biden, Blinken, and Sullivan, or had succumbed to the enormous, horrendous pressure they were placing on them, Hamas would live, Hezbollah would be stronger than ever, Iran would be stronger than ever. In fact, Iran would be stronger in part because the United States keeps funding it. Think about that. But so horrendous was October 7th, Netanyahu said, never again. This is never happening again. No more half deals. No more we'll put it off for peace for 6 years. No. You raped our women. You beheaded our children. You tortured our men. This ain't happening again. And they were all innocent of anything. So let's take a look at NBC News. Cut one, go.
Tonight, with Syria convulsed in revolutionary chaos, its neighbor Israel taking decisive action. Israeli warplanes carrying out strikes across the country, leaving this airbase near Damascus in flames, according to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. The target, Israel says, military sites, including the Assad regime's stockpiles of chemical and biological weapons, which it fears could fall into the hands of extremists.
The only interest we have is the security of Israel and its citizens.
Bashar al-Assad, Syria's toppled dictator, used chemical weapons against his own people during 13 bloody years of civil war. President Obama threatened strikes in response.
A red line for us is we start seeing...
He didn't do anything. He did absolutely nothing.
Chemical weapons moving around or being utilized.
But didn't follow through. While President Trump mounted 2 waves of attacks during his first term. Israeli forces are also moving in on the ground, first capturing a buffer zone between Syria and the Israeli-controlled Golan Heights, and then edging troops further into Syria itself.
There was never any love lost between Israel and the Assad regime, but for 50 years, this was Israel's quietest border, and the Israeli government is determined to try to keep it that way.
Syrians fear Israel is taking advantage of their weakness to capture territory.
Well, let's stop right there. Israel has said, as recently as yesterday, we're not interested in land in Syria. We're not taking land in Syria. We're in the buffer zone, and we intend to protect Israel from the buffer zone, that is, in the buffer zone from the terrorists coming into the buffer zone, and then Israel having to actually go to war over it. Go ahead.
Israel annexed the Golan after its military victory against its Arab neighbors in the 1967 war.
All right, hold on a second. They're going back to 1967? Why don't they go back to 1948? Why don't they actually go back to 66, what is it, BC? What the hell is this? This is just stupid. This is NBC News. Israel grabbing land, Israel this, Israel that. They all want them to go to the 1967 borders. If they went back to the 1967 borders, it would basically be Delaware. They'd have no ability to defend their country from missiles, from aircraft, from tanks, from anything. Go ahead.
But Israel today insisting its aim only to prevent chaos in Syria spilling over.
I emphasize it is a very limited and temporary step we took from security reasons.
The state of Israel and rebel-led Syria now uneasy new neighbors.
And Raf Sanchez joins us now from Tel Aviv.
Notice they all report from Tel Aviv. You notice that they'll take little excursions from time to time, but they run back to Tel Aviv. Why isn't he living and staying in Damascus? Why not? Let's see. Maybe because it's under attack. Maybe because it's the middle of war. Why doesn't he go to Beirut? Can't go there. No, can't go there. Let's go to Tel Aviv. Why go to Tel Aviv? Because the Israeli government is protecting their country and their cities, while you have miscreants and malcontents, including reporters coming in from other countries like our own country. Israel is seizing land. Israel's doing this. Israel's doing that. Israel's doing nothing but defending itself. Again, they're not exceeding that buffer zone. They don't want to. Go ahead.
Raf, do we have any sense of the rebels' attitude towards the state of Israel?
So, Ellison, the main rebel group, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, known as HTS, is a Sunni Islamist group. It has its origins in al-Qaeda. That is not an ideological profile that is friendly to Israel, to say the least. On top of that, you have the leader of that group, who is probably the single most powerful man in Syria right now. His family is originally from the Golan Heights. They were displaced by Israeli forces in 1967.
Hold on. Displaced by Israeli forces in 1967. The Syrians used to put their tanks there and shoot down on Israel at will. At will. One of the reasons Israel fought the 1967 war was to push the Syrians back. They were being surrounded. They were about to be attacked. And that includes by Egypt and Jordan and all the rest of them. And so now they defeat them all. It's a miraculous war, really. Israel could have been exterminated. They push back on Jordan, and now they say, oh, the Jordan West Bank? It's never been the Jordan West Bank. In 1948, Jordan took Judea and Samaria. In 1967, Israel took it back. The Golan Heights. Who says they're Syrian? Look at the map. But the Israelis were not going to tolerate any more missiles being fired down to their populations from the Golan Heights. I've been to the Golan Heights. They're way up there. That's why they call them the Golan Heights. And the Israelis lost an enormous number of men, certainly given their population, to take the Golan, to take it and hold it. I've never heard anything like this before. You know, it's amazing. Here in the United States, when we fought these battles with the Native Americans or we fought other battles, did we give land back? Oh, you know what? California, Mexico, you take it. New Mexico is back to old Mexico. And then the British, Oregon, no, we don't have Oregon, Washington. The entire damn western United States was taken at the end of a gun. We aware of that here? I don't know. Seems awfully stupid. And Syria didn't always have those boundaries. Centuries ago, several thousand years ago, it was called Assyria. It didn't have the same boundaries. So, I mean, it's just an incredible thing here. In fact, if you really want to redraw the map of the Middle East, the vast majority of those areas we're talking about, whether it's the area in Jordan, whether it's the area in Lebanon, whether it's the area Gaza Strip, we're Jewish. So what do you want? You want to go back to 1967? What's so special about pre-1967? What's so special about that? So they provide no context here. Go ahead.
That's why he goes by the pseudonym, the nom de guerre, al-Jolani, which literally means in Arabic, from the Golan. So he has personal animus or reasons for personal animus towards Israel.
Now, here's a guy telling us what a guy thinks who he's never spoken to in his life. I'm just saying. He reads the same books, the same online so-called experts that I and anybody else can read. So he's a personal animus toward Israel, you see. Now, he hates Jews. It's not because his family was displaced. And if his family didn't want to be displaced, Israel has millions of Arabs living within its borders. Millions. They have more civil liberties than Arabs have in any other part of the Middle East, in any part of the Arab world. So they're displaced. They wanted to come to Israel. They could live in peace and harmony in Israel, but apparently they don't. Look at the little kid they raised. Turns out to be a vile, poisonous, cancerous, mass-murdering terrorist. Go ahead.
All of that said, HTS has been very eager to telegraph moderation to the world. They have not been making threats towards Israel. They do seem more interested in domestic governance inside of Syria rather than international jihad outside of it.
Let me help everybody. His strategy appears to be, I can't deal with foreign military coming in here right now, especially Israel and the United States. So let's play nice for a while. Let's grab a hold of all the domestic levers of power. Let's get our control over this place. Then we'll look outward. That's my guess. That's my guess. Go ahead.
And there is this irony here that Israel and the rebels share enemies, Iran, Hezbollah, and part of the reason the rebels were successful in overthrowing Assad is that Israel had done so much damage to both Iran and Hezbollah over the last year or so.
For all this and much more, sign up for Levin TV.